The customer is always right, unless the customer is a deeply delusional American armed with a Yelp account. From aggressively suing the sun to demanding refunds from the ocean, consumer entitlement has officially reached a psychological breaking point. Here are 50 brain-melting reviews that will make you apologize to every retail worker you ever meet. 1. Dropping off your kid at a daycare facility and expecting the tranquil ambiance of a remote Tibetan monastery is a bold strategy. One New Jersey parent took their absolute entitlement to the internet, leaving a blistering one-star review that didn't mention safety hazards or broken toys. No, their massive grievance was that the building was full of loud screaming children. Let that sink in. This genius was genuinely appalled that a room packed with toddlers throwing tantrums wasn't a silent meditation retreat. Did they expect a bunch of 3-year-olds to be quietly sipping herbal tea while discussing their stock portfolios? 2. Arizona in July is essentially the surface of Mars, but apparently not everyone got the memo. Someone decided to hit the public swimming pool during a massive heat wave and was absolutely horrified by a shocking scientific phenomenon. They left a furious 1-star rating complaining that the concrete surrounding the water was unbearably hot on their bare feet. Yes, somebody took time out of their busy day to act like a victim because pavement baking directly under the scorching desert sun got warm. I guess they expected the city to install a giant cloud-producing machine just to protect their delicate little toes. 3. Narcissism has officially peaked, and we are now publicly reviewing our own social gatherings. One deeply conflicted individual logged on to leave a brutal 1-star critique of a birthday party they had just attended. They complained bitterly that the guest of honor seemed completely self-absorbed. The music playlist was absolute garbage, and they didn't even receive the gifts they actually wanted. The hilarious plot twist? The review was written by the exact person whose birthday it was. This is either a brilliant new form of performance art, or this person desperately needs a hobby that doesn't involve rating their own miserable existence. 4. France gifted the United States a massive copper symbol of freedom back in the 1880s, but one American tourist felt it was severely lacking in modern conveniences. They proudly slapped the Statue of Liberty with a single, pathetic star, because actually using their legs to climb the interior stairs was just entirely too much physical labor. To add insult to injury, their final blistering critique was that the view from the top was nothing special because it was just New Jersey. Honestly, trashing a world-famous historical monument because you hate cardio and neighboring states is a level of petty I fully respect. 5. You voluntarily buy a ticket to a massive water park in Wisconsin, put on your swimsuit, and climb up to a giant slide literally named the Tsunami. You look up, see a colossal bucket tipping hundreds of gallons of water directly onto your head, and your first thought is absolute betrayal. That is exactly what happened to one reviewer who gave the park a single star, furiously complaining that the attraction was aggressively wet. What exactly was the game plan here? Were they expecting a gentle misting fan and a dry towel service mid-slide? If you are offended by aggressive moisture, maybe visit a desert instead. 6. Local businesses are one thing, but leaving a scathing 1-star Yelp review for the literal sun takes an astronomical amount of ego. This absolute pioneer complained that our local star was way too bright, completely unreliable because it vanishes every single night, and is a leading cause of premature wrinkles. Their brilliantly proposed solution to this cosmic nightmare was for someone to install a giant dimmer switch on a 4.5 billion-year-old ball of raging nuclear fusion. You really have to admire the sheer, unadulterated arrogance of demanding better customer service from the center of our solar system. 7. You would think paying for a haunted house means you actually want to be scared. Not this reviewer. They slapped a local Halloween attraction with a furious 1-star rating because a guy in a zombie mask jumped out and, quote, startled them completely unprovoked. They heavily complained that the management allowed a highly toxic environment of sudden loud noises and aggressive spooky behavior. They actually demanded the actors issue polite verbal warnings before initiating any jump scares. Imagine a vampire tapping you on the shoulder to ask for written consent before chasing you with a chainsaw. 8. Internet rage doesn't always have to make sense. A local hardware store was hit with a punishing 1-star review that completely ignored their actual selection of tools and supplies. The user angrily typed out that they were leaving a terrible rating simply because they read another customer's 5-star review, and that guy's grammar was absolutely atrocious. They firmly stated that if this establishment attracts people who don't know the difference between there and there, they want absolutely no part of it. We have finally reached peak internet, where small businesses are actively punished because some random guy named Dave skipped middle school English. 9. Mother Nature received some incredibly harsh feedback from an agitated Oklahoma resident who decided to formally review the wind. Giving the invisible force a single star, they called it highly disorganized, completely unreliable, and expressed fury that it blew their hat off without issuing any sort of prior public warning. Yes, they wanted an emergency alert system for a basic breeze. They seriously suggested that the wind needs to be far more predictable and should probably offer a gentle setting for paying citizens. It is truly fascinating to watch someone demand a managerial refund from the actual weather. 10. We all hate the start of the work week, but one brave soul took their grievances to a completely abstract level by leaving a devastating 1-star review for the very existence of Monday. Their incredibly detailed critique cited extremely poor structural design, terrible weekly timing, and an overall overwhelmingly negative vibe. They didn't just want to complain, though. They offered a truly revolutionary solution, demanding that Monday be entirely discontinued by management and immediately replaced with a second Saturday. As totally unhinged as this person is for reviewing a day of the week, I think we can all comfortably sign this specific petition. 11. Those automated grocery store registers are pure evil. But one customer managed to make the self-checkout experience even more humiliating. They were absolutely furious and left a blistering 1-star review because the machine kept screaming about an unexpected item in the bagging area. The problem wasn't a rogue can of soup or an unscanned piece of fruit. The unexpected item was the customer's own human hand. This person reportedly spent a full 60 seconds aggressively arguing with a robotic voice about the physical existence of their own biological limb. Blaming the supermarket because a laser scanner doesn't recognize your arm as produce is a special kind of crazy. 12. Finding a working payphone in the 21st century is like discovering an ancient artifact. But that didn't stop modern entitlement from ruining the moment. A public telephone booth somehow received a highly aggressive 1-star review from a user who was genuinely outraged by its severe lack of digital features. The reviewer complained bitterly that this strange metal box didn't have any downloadable apps whatsoever, and they were furious that it couldn't be used to check their Instagram feed. They were standing inside a relic from 2 decades ago, completely baffled as to why they couldn't swipe right. It's a miracle they didn't try to plug a charger into the coin slot. 13. Getting shredded at 3 in the morning is usually a solitary pursuit, unless you are this specific guy in Miami. He dragged himself to a 24-hour gym in the middle of the night and promptly left a pathetic 1-star review. His massive issue? The facility was entirely too empty and quiet, which apparently made him feel deeply unmotivated and incredibly lonely. His demands to fix this tragedy included hiring a late-night hype staff to cheer him on, or blasting deafening nightclub music to simulate a party while he did bicep curls alone in the dark. Sir, you are at a gym, not a bachelor party. 14. Social interactions are exhausting, and someone actually took the time to write a 1-star review for the entire cultural construct of small talk. They dragged it like a terrible movie, calling out the incredibly repetitive script, the completely boring characters, and a storyline that literally never goes anywhere. They noted that you are forced to talk about the weather, pretend to care about the upcoming weekend, and then the awkward interaction just ends without any real resolution. They declared it to be terrible writing and said they would give it 0 stars if possible. Honestly, I have never heard a more accurate description of human interaction. 15. Linear time is a difficult concept for some folks to grasp. A hungry diner in Las Vegas had to learn the hardest way possible that clocks continue to tick forward even if you are stuck in heavy traffic. After booking an 8 o'clock reservation at a high-end steakhouse, he finally strolled through the doors at 9:30. Upon discovering his table had rightfully been given to someone else, he unleashed a furious internet review. He genuinely believed the restaurant should have halted all kitchen operations and turned away paying customers just to await his grand, highly delayed arrival. Main character syndrome is a terrible disease. 16. Postal workers deal with absolute nonsense daily. But this specific Florida complaint is a genuine masterpiece of stupidity. A highly agitated customer left a 1-star review because the local post office flatly refused to mail their raw coconut. The sender stubbornly refused to put it inside a cardboard box, loudly arguing that the coconut was already utilizing its own natural, organic packaging provided by Mother Nature. The postal workers, preferring to stick to strict federal mailing regulations instead of botanical philosophy, simply declined the transaction. The customer left furious, presumably to find a carrier pigeon strong enough to carry tropical fruit across state lines. 17. Asphalt can be incredibly intimidating, at least to one fragile soul who dropped a bizarre 1-star rating on a completely empty parking lot. Their main issue was that the vast emptiness of the space felt existentially aggressive and made them feel incredibly small as a human being. Instead of just parking their car and walking away like a normal adult, they demanded the city convert a portion of the lot into a miniature amusement park, just to add some much-needed emotional warmth to the concrete. It takes a truly special mind to demand a Ferris wheel just because you cannot handle the psychological weight of an empty parking space. 18. Only in America will someone bond out of a county holding cell and immediately log on to Yelp to destroy the precinct's rating. A former inmate gave the local jail a brutal 1-star review, completely ignoring the fact they were arrested for a felony. Their primary complaint was that the stainless steel toilet lacked any sort of privacy curtain and the complimentary bologna sandwich was entirely too dry. They furiously noted the guards were incredibly unaccommodating when asked for extra pillows, loudly declaring they would never return to this establishment. Well, the judge might have a different opinion. 19. Taking consumer feedback to a philosophical extreme, one user decided to slap our entire species with a dismal 1-star rating by reviewing the human condition. They noted that being human comes with a crippling, non-negotiable awareness of your own mortality, which is honestly a massive downer. They also complained that the emotions feature is incredibly buggy and frequently causes random crying during sad television commercials. Their final thought was that the overall warranty is way too short for the massive amount of daily maintenance required. It's hard to argue with that kind of flawless logic when assessing the deeply flawed product of life. 20. Standing on the edge of a magnificent geological wonder should humble a person. Instead, one tourist pulled out their phone to give the Grand Canyon 1 star because it is, in their incredibly enlightened words, literally just a big hole. This vastly underwhelmed visitor was deeply offended by the total lack of modern amenities out in the harsh desert. They seriously suggested that the government should install a massive water park, or maybe a multi-level shopping mall to make the giant ditch a bit more entertaining. Because nothing really enhances the raw beauty of layered ancient rock quite like a neon-lit lazy river and a food court. 21. Modern convenience is completely wasted on a specific segment of the population. A shopper at a local grocery store felt so incredibly violated that they gave the business 1 star because the automatic sliding doors opened without their explicit verbal consent. I am absolutely serious. They typed out a raging paragraph describing the motion sensors as an overwhelmingly intrusive and highly presumptuous experience. Apparently, this person just wanted to stand outside on the sidewalk and stare blankly at the glass, and those meddling automatic doors completely ruined their afternoon by providing convenient, hands-free access to the building. 22. Aviation is a literal miracle of engineering, allowing us to hurtle through the sky in a pressurized metal tube, but that simply wasn't enough for one entitled traveler. They slapped a major airline with a 1-star review for an issue entirely outside the laws of physics or pilot control. Their massive grievance? The fluffy white clouds were entirely blocking their view of the towns below. They were genuinely furious that booking a window seat didn't guarantee a crystal-clear, uninterrupted aerial tour of the Midwest. You can almost picture them angrily hitting the call button to demand the flight attendant somehow roll down the window and shoo the weather away. 23. Los Angeles traffic breaks people's brains on a daily basis. But this driver took their road rage to a completely delusional new level. They successfully located the geographical coordinates of a local stop sign and gave the red octagon a blistering 1-star review. They confidently claimed the metal pole was poorly located, totally disruptive to their personal driving flow, and wildly accused it of promoting a culture of stopping, which they deemed to be highly anti-progress. Imagine being this infuriated by a legally mandated piece of painted metal, whose only job is to prevent you from crashing your car into a city bus. 24. Touching priceless artifacts is generally frowned upon in civilized society. But one guy didn't get the memo. He visited a local history museum, got absolutely appalled by the basic rules, and left a raging 1-star review. He complained that first, they force you to pay an entry fee, and then you find out you aren't even allowed to grab the exhibits. He was genuinely shocked that the security staff became extremely hostile when he simply tried to rub his hands all over a fragile Civil War uniform just to feel the fabric texture. He warned others to avoid the place because it was entirely too hands-off. 25. Finding a good deal in Sin City is legendary, but this particular customer vastly misunderstood the fundamental business model of a Las Vegas buffet. They dropped a vicious 1-star rating, and surprisingly, the complaint had absolutely nothing to do with cold eggs or dry roast beef. Their issue was that management eventually asked them to leave the premises. The reviewer felt profoundly disrespected, genuinely believing that the phrase "all you can eat" was a legally binding contract allowing them to establish permanent residency inside the dining room. They were absolutely devastated to learn you cannot just sleep in a booth and wake up for more crab legs. 26. Blaming the housing market on a piece of pine wood is a spectacularly unhinged move. A frustrated hobbyist purchased a do-it-yourself wooden birdhouse kit, successfully built it, and then angrily left a 1-star review online. The wood was totally fine, the included instructions were perfectly clear, and it held together beautifully. Their massive problem was that after they hung it up in the yard, absolutely zero birds decided to move in. Yes, this person legitimately blamed a pile of cheap lumber for the highly discerning real estate tastes of the local pigeon population. Maybe the birds were just waiting for lower interest rates before signing a lease. 27. Complaining that a product does its job perfectly is a special kind of stupid. After dropping serious cash on a high-end pair of noise-canceling headphones, one consumer left a furious 1-star review solely because the device worked entirely too well. They angrily explained that the audio isolation was so powerful they completely failed to hear their own smoke alarm screaming while cooking dinner, resulting in what they casually described as a minor kitchen incident. They aggressively punished the tech company because the product successfully did exactly what it was advertised to do, just at a very dangerous and highly inconvenient time for their terrible culinary skills. 28. Carving giant presidential heads into solid granite wasn't enough to impress this specific American tourist. While visiting Mount Rushmore, they left a scathing 1-star review that completely ignored the incredible craftsmanship and deep historical significance of the site. Instead, they passionately lamented the fact that the entire sculpture was terribly unfinished. This person stood before a mountain carved with dynamite and chisels, completely confused as to why the artist lazily stopped after just doing the faces. They boldly stated the attraction would be significantly improved if the presidents had full stone bodies wearing cool outfits. Because George Washington definitely needs a granite tuxedo to really pop. 29. Patience is entirely gone from modern society, especially when someone is actively holding sharp scissors near your ears. One impatient guy decided he couldn't wait to express his severe disappointment, leaving a 1-star review for his haircut while he was literally still sitting in the barber's chair. He even uploaded a tragic real-time selfie, accompanied by a panicked caption stating that this is absolutely not what he asked for. The guy is still snipping away, and he has officially lost all hope. He ended the dramatic post by begging the internet to pray for him. You have to wonder what the barber thought while his client was crying onto a Yelp page mid-fade. 30. Taking your golden retriever to the local dog park should be a relaxing afternoon, but one absolute lunatic completely misunderstood the assignment. They left a raging 1-star review because the fenced-in grass area was, and I seriously cannot make this up, heavily infested with unleashed dogs. They were genuinely terrified and deeply offended that dozens of canines were just running around, aggressively sniffing each other without any formal supervision. They demanded the city step in and force all the animals to remain seated at all times. It is a dog park, lady, not a corporate board meeting. 31. Taking zero accountability is practically an American pastime at this point. An amateur baker became so incredibly frustrated with their culinary failures that they logged on to give their very own personal kitchen a 1-star review. They viciously attacked the room, claiming the oven was totally unpredictable, the granite counters were offensively low, and the overall terrible layout completely ruined their delicate baking flow. They aggressively blamed every single burned, hard-as-a-rock cupcake on the physical space itself, while heavily ignoring the massive glaring fact that they were the exact person who designed and paid for the remodel. It's always easier to blame the drywall than your terrible recipes. 32. Urban infrastructure really confused one local driver who decided to leave a brutal 1-star review for a perfectly safe, structurally sound bridge. They weren't complaining about dangerous potholes, heavy traffic, or ugly steel girders. Their massive issue was the shocking realization that the road only goes in one direction at a time. They were deeply frustrated that they had to drive across the water one way, complete their errands, and then actually turn the car around to cross it back. They angrily argued that the government should make the bridge far more efficient by turning it into a giant continuous loop. Sir, that is called a roundabout, and it doesn't cross water. 33. Malibu attracts all kinds of tourists, but this one deserves a special award for sheer entitlement. A heavily disgruntled visitor went to a gorgeous beach and left a devastating 2-star takedown of the entire Pacific Ocean. They were genuinely horrified to discover that this incredibly massive, wild body of water was way too salty and unpleasantly cold, apparently expecting the Pacific to feel exactly like a heated resort swimming pool. As if that wasn't stupid enough, they also lodged a formal written complaint regarding an overpowering fish smell at the beach. Yes, they were furiously angry that the ocean smelled exactly like the things that live inside it. 34. Retail lighting is rarely flattering, but for this specific reviewer, the department store dressing room was an absolute chamber of psychological torture. They logged on to give the fitting room mirror a brutal 1-star review, completely convinced that the glass itself was actively out to destroy them. They aggressively claimed that the harsh, overhead fluorescent lighting was actually a highly deliberate, calculated conspiracy organized by the global fashion industry strictly to expose all their physical flaws and completely crush their self-esteem. It takes a massive ego to believe big retail is orchestrating an elaborate lighting plot just to ruin your random Tuesday afternoon shopping trip. 35. Fuel prices will drive a person to absolute madness, and sometimes a standard 1-star review simply doesn't have the emotional bandwidth to capture a consumer's total financial despair. A customer standing at a gas station in California was so deeply traumatized by the economy that they completely skipped the star rating and instead uploaded a fully structured poem. The opening lines read, "Ode to pump number 7, thy price a cruel joke, thy neon numbers mock me, my spirit thou hast broke." It was a wildly dramatic, beautifully tragic lament entirely dedicated to the painful cost of unleaded gasoline. Honestly, William Shakespeare himself would be weeping at this absolute masterpiece. 36. Household pets are finally weaponizing the internet against us. This highly specific 1-star review appears to have been meticulously typed out by a very angry cat using its owner's unlocked phone. The business being reviewed was simply titled, "The Human." The furious complaints included that the ceramic food bowl was only filled twice a day, which the furry author called a borderline starvation diet. Furthermore, the strict no clause on the expensive sofa policy was described as totally tyrannical. The final insult. The Human constantly referred to the author as Mr. Snookums, which the cat noted was a deeply undignified and highly disrespectful title for a master predator. 37. Hustle culture has completely destroyed our brains, perfectly illustrated by the guy who left a 1-star review for the biological necessity of sleep. He angrily complained about the mandatory 8-hour nightly downtime, calling it a totally inefficient biological process and a massive waste of incredibly valuable productivity time. Treating his own brain like a cheap smartphone, he also loudly noted that the sleep system is constantly plagued by horrible software bugs, specifically citing terrifying nightmares and loud snoring. He ended his ridiculous rant by demanding the universe release a future downloadable patch to fix these glaring user interface issues. Get a grip, man, and just take a nap. 38. Taking a dirty SUV through an automated car wash should be relaxing, unless you suffer from severe vehicular paranoia. Picture a pristine vehicle rolling onto the tracks. The high-pressure foam jets suddenly fire, the massive blue spinning brushes rapidly descend, and the owner sitting inside the cabin immediately suffers a full-blown, terrifying panic attack. This absolute meltdown resulted in a fiery one-star review where the driver formally accused the local car wash of staging an unprovoked physical assault. They furiously claimed the soapy brushes were entirely too aggressive and deeply violated the personal, emotional space of their expensive automobile. Sir, it is a piece of metal, not a traumatized child. 39. Basic physics truly baffles some customers. A wildly popular local ice cream shop was hit with a punishing one-star review because their signature dessert was shockingly, entirely too cold. The angry reviewer claimed they had suffered a severe, debilitating brain freeze incident while eating a massive cone way too fast. Refusing to take any personal responsibility for their gluttony, they confidently suggested that the business should immediately start serving all their ice cream completely at room temperature. Their genius, highly practical proposed business fix was to serve the product chilled, but absolutely never frozen. Congratulations, buddy. You just invented a lukewarm glass of milk. 40. Hypocrisy reached its absolute peak when a user decided to review the Yelp app itself, while actively utilizing the Yelp app to do so. This highly aggressive individual navigated to the official app page strictly to leave a devastating one-star review. Their incredibly honest reasoning? They stated the platform is absolutely terrible because it openly allows deeply petty, vindictive people just like them to leave totally unfair, unhinged reviews on the internet. The absolute best part is they posted this brilliant philosophical confession mere seconds after giving a hardworking local taco truck a single star because the jalapenos were entirely too spicy. Beautiful, shameless self-sabotage. 41. Leaving a one-star review for a funeral home is a spectacularly dark move, but this grieving family member took pettiness to the afterlife. They were completely furious because the memorial parlor refused to let them hook up their personal phone to the Bluetooth speakers to blast a highly inappropriate rap playlist during the wake. The reviewer angrily claimed the funeral director totally killed the vibe of the room and ruined their grandmother's big day. They literally punished a mortuary for refusing to turn a somber casket viewing into a raging weekend nightclub. Grandma must be so proud. 42. Online recipe comments are a goldmine of culinary delusion, but this home chef takes the cake. They left a brutal one-star review on a highly rated page for homemade chocolate chip cookies, declaring the recipe absolutely terrible and entirely unedible. They proudly stated they followed the instructions completely perfectly, except for one tiny, insignificant detail. They realized they didn't have any white sugar in the pantry, so they just swapped it out and used an entire cup of table salt instead. They then fiercely warned the internet that the cookies tasted incredibly disgusting. It's a massive, unsolvable mystery what could have possibly ruined that batter. 43. We have all experienced the deep heartbreak of a trapped snack. But one highly emotional user immortalized the tragedy in the form of a furious Yelp review. They slammed the break room vending machine with a single star, writing a vivid narrative of their profound loss. They stated that they paid hard-earned cash for their potato chips, watched the metal spiral slowly turn, only for the bag to remain suspended in midair, aggressively mocking them from just behind the thick safety glass. They concluded their highly dramatic online rant by declaring the glowing metal box to be a cold, heartless corporate thief. We feel your pain, my friend. 44. Teenagers have discovered a new way to torment their teachers by weaponizing the internet review system against the public education system. A deeply unbothered high school student logged onto a public directory to leave a scathing one-star review for their very own weekend history assignment. They boldly stated that the assigned topic was incredibly boring. The teacher's printed instructions were highly vague, and the midnight submission deadline felt like a deeply personal attack on their social life. This wasn't actually a consumer review at all. It was a beautifully petty, highly visible, incredibly passive-aggressive message delivered directly to their instructor on a massive public platform. 45. New York City's most famous green space received some harsh criticism from a completely unhinged tourist who boldly declared that Central Park simply contains entirely too much raw nature. They slapped the deeply iconic, world-famous urban oasis with a pathetic 2 stars, furiously complaining about the existence of highly annoying flying bugs, the completely uneven dirt walking paths, and a deeply offensive general lack of smooth asphalt pavement. They clearly ventured into the great outdoors hoping to find a fully sterilized, climate-controlled corporate botanical garden, but instead, they were absolutely traumatized by encountering real trees, actual dirt, and an authentic outdoor environment. 46. Getting pulled over is stressful, but it takes a massive amount of unearned confidence to review law enforcement like they are a fast food drive-thru window. This absolutely mind-blowing 1-star review was left directly on the public page for a local city police department. The highly offended user's primary complaint was that they had recently been handed a very expensive speeding ticket, and the officer who wrote the citation was, shockingly, not very friendly at all during the interaction. They were completely, genuinely upset about the total lack of a cheerful, warm bedside manner, while actively being cited by the government for blatantly breaking the law. 47. Going to the dentist is miserable, but accusing medical professionals of blatant theft takes it to another level. A highly agitated patient logged on to drop a vicious 1-star review after getting their wisdom teeth pulled. The complaint wasn't about the pain or the massive medical bill. They were absolutely furious because the surgeon flatly refused to let them take their bloody, extracted teeth home in a plastic baggie to make a custom necklace. They legally accused the dental clinic of hoarding human bones for a highly suspicious black market operation. Just pay your copay and leave, weirdo. 48. National parks are designed strictly to preserve raw, untamed nature, a concept that completely went over the head of one furious tourist. They viciously attacked a massive nature reserve with a 1-star review because they were highly offended by the behavior of the local wildlife. Their incredibly loud complaint? The forest deer were simply not tame enough. They were deeply, emotionally scarred that the wild, untethered animals actively refused to walk closer to their family for a cute Instagram selfie, firmly describing the creatures as incredibly rude and highly uncooperative. It is genuinely terrifying that this person expected to find highly trained, mechanical Disney animatronics in the actual wilderness. 49. Holding a grudge against a piece of local flora is an incredible way to waste your weekend. A highly agitated neighborhood resident decided to review one specific, singular oak tree standing in their community park, hitting it with a devastating 1-star rating. The completely unhinged reason behind this vendetta? The massive plant allegedly provided entirely too much shade on the grass. Their pleasant afternoon picnic was apparently completely, utterly ruined by a large leafy tree successfully performing its absolute primary biological function as a giant piece of wood. Imagine being this violently angry at a branch for blocking out the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. 50. Retail expectations are wildly out of control, perfectly demonstrated by the absolute genius who left a brutal 1-star review for a small, locally owned antique store. The customer's massive, incredibly angry complaint was simply that absolutely everything inside the building was extremely old, and the entire room distinctly smelled exactly like the passage of time. They seemed completely, genuinely shocked and highly offended that a retail business loudly advertising itself as a seller of ancient historical artifacts didn't actually stock brand new, incredibly trendy, modern plastic decor straight from the aisles of a Target. The sheer irony of this complaint is so incredibly thick, it is practically a highly valuable antique itself. I dare you to defend the dumbest review on this list. Go into the comments right now and logically justify why the guy suing the wind or the lady fighting the automatic doors is actually a genius. I will wait. While you figure out that mental gymnastics, aggressively tap the like button and subscribe to the channel before Yelp deletes us both.